My son told me to stay away from his family in a single text message, and in that moment, my entire world cracked open. I was standing in my kitchen on a quiet March morning, the smell of fresh chocolate chip cookies filling the air, when my phone vibrated on the counter. I smiled without even looking. Benjamin always texted me every morning. He had for years. But when I picked up the phone, the smile disappeared. "Mom, please don't come to our house anymore. We need peace. Respect this." 6 words, cold, final. Before we continue, just a small request. Please hit the like button if you enjoy emotional stories like this. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and how you're doing today. And don't forget to subscribe, so you never miss a new story. Your support truly keeps us going. Now, let's continue. I read the message again and again, hoping it would somehow change. My hands began to shake, and I gently set the phone down before I dropped it. The oven timer was beeping, sharp and loud, but I couldn't move. The kitchen suddenly felt too small, too warm, too empty. This had to be a mistake. Maybe he meant to text someone else. Maybe he was angry about something small. But the name at the top of the screen didn't change. Benjamin, my son. My only child. The same boy I rocked to sleep every night. The same man who once held my hand at his father's funeral and whispered, "We'll be okay, Mom." Now I was being asked to stay away as if I were the problem. I sat down slowly, my chest tight, my thoughts racing. Tomorrow was my granddaughter Emma's 6th birthday. Her gift was already wrapped on the dining table. A purple scarf I'd knitted myself, and her favorite book. Cookies cooled on the counter, baked just for them. I tried to reply. Typed a message. Deleted it. Typed another. Deleted that too. Every word sounded desperate. Every sentence felt wrong. So I did nothing. Hours later, I checked my phone again. No messages from Benjamin. None from his wife, Stephanie. Just a neighbor asking about coffee. And a pharmacy reminder. Then I opened Facebook. There it was. A smiling family photo from 2 nights earlier. Stephanie, Emma, and her parents all together. Glasses raised, laughing. The caption read, "Family is everything." I wasn't there. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't sudden at all. Something had been breaking quietly for a long time, and I was only just beginning to see it. That night, as I stared at the gift meant for Emma, one terrifying question echoed in my mind. What had I done to lose my own family without even realizing it? I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, that text message replayed in my head like a cruel echo. "We need peace." As if my love had been noise. As if I had become something to escape from. By morning, I made a decision. I needed answers. At 7:30 a.m., I called Benjamin. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. I hung up without speaking. I tried again an hour later. Same result. At 9, I sent a short text, nothing emotional, nothing dramatic. "Can we please talk? I need to understand what's going on." It showed read. No reply. By noon, my hands were shaking. I called Stephanie. The call went straight to voicemail. Declined. I left a message anyway, my voice barely steady, asking for just 5 minutes. Silence. The quiet felt louder than yelling. I finally called Patricia, my neighbor and closest friend. She answered on the second ring. "Come over," she said gently. "I've got coffee on." Her kitchen smelled like cinnamon and warmth. Everything mine no longer felt like. The moment she looked at me, she knew something was wrong. I showed her the text. She read it slowly, then looked up with careful eyes. "Did something happen the last time you visited?" she asked. I shook my head. "I don't think so. I brought groceries." Their fridge looked empty. I cleaned up a little. Helped Emma with homework. Patricia hesitated. "Did they ask you to?" The question caught me off guard. "No, but I was just helping." She nodded slowly. "Caroline, helping without being asked doesn't always feel like help." Her words stayed with me as I drove home. They didn't feel fair. Helping was what I did. Helping was how I loved. But the house felt different when I walked in. Too quiet, too still. That's when I noticed the box on the top shelf of my closet. Old journals. Years of them. I hadn't opened them in ages. I carried the box to the table and began reading. At first, the entries were sweet, proud, ordinary. Then, uncomfortable. Helped Benjamin choose an apartment. He seemed annoyed. Reorganized Stephanie's kitchen while she was at work. Paid their electric bill without telling them. Suggested Emma needed more discipline. Page after page, the same pattern appeared. I told myself I was being loving, supportive, necessary. But as I kept reading, a sick realization formed in my chest. This text message wasn't sudden. It wasn't cruel. It was the end of a very long conversation I had never truly listened to. And buried in one final journal entry, written just months ago, was a sentence that made my breath catch. Benjamin says they need boundaries. I don't understand why. I closed the journal slowly, my fingers trembling. The words on that last page wouldn't leave my mind. They need boundaries. I had written it so casually, like it meant nothing. But now, sitting alone in my quiet house, it felt like a warning I had ignored on purpose. I didn't want to believe I was the problem. For years, I told myself I was just being a good mother. A caring grandmother. I showed love through action, through fixing, organizing, stepping in before things fell apart. That's what love looked like to me. But love wasn't supposed to push people away. 3 days passed. No calls, no messages. Emma's birthday came and went like a shadow. Early that morning, before the sun was fully up, I drove past their house and left her gift on the porch. I didn't knock. I didn't ring the bell. I just set it down and walked away. By noon, the gift was gone. No thank you, no message, nothing. That was when I realized I couldn't get answers from Benjamin. If he wanted space, I had to respect that. But I still needed to understand what had gone so wrong. So, I did something I had never done before. I called Stephanie's mother. Janet answered politely, her voice calm but guarded. After a brief pause, she agreed to meet me for coffee. When I arrived, she was already seated, hands wrapped around a cup she hadn't touched. I didn't waste time. Please, I said quietly. Tell me what I did. Janet looked at me for a long moment. Then she spoke, carefully. Stephanie feels overwhelmed by you. The words hit harder than I expected. She feels like you don't trust her as a mother. Janet continued. Like you step in before she gets a chance to handle things herself. I was helping, I said, my voice defensive. I know you believe that, she replied gently. But helping without permission can feel like taking control. She told me things I didn't know, or maybe things I didn't want to see. How? Stephanie cried after I rearranged her kitchen. How small she felt when I corrected her parenting in front of others. How my generosity made her feel inadequate instead of supported. I sat there, stunned. By the time I left the cafe, my chest felt hollow. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at my phone, replaying years of conversations, texts, and memories through a new lens. What if love wasn't enough? What if respect was missing? That night, as I scrolled through old messages from my son, I finally saw something I had missed for decades. He wasn't asking me to help. He was begging me to stop. That night, I sat alone on my couch, my phone glowing in my hands as I scrolled through years of messages from Benjamin. At the time, they had sounded normal, loving even. Now, they felt different. I've got it handled, Mom. We're okay. You don't need to worry. I used to read those lines and think he was just being polite. Now I saw them for what they were, quiet boundaries. I had stepped over again and again. I opened one of my old notebooks and started writing. Not excuses. Not defenses. Just facts. Every time I helped without being asked. Every decision I made for them. Every moment I believed I knew better. The list filled pages. I paid bills when I saw late notices. bought expensive gifts that made their own efforts look small, gave advice when no one asked, corrected Stephanie in front of Emma, rearranged their home as if it were still mine. Each line felt heavier than the last. For the first time, I allowed myself to see the truth. I hadn't trusted my son to be an adult, and worse, I hadn't trusted his wife to be a mother. I thought I was being loving, but love that doesn't leave room for someone else to breathe slowly turns into control. The realization broke something inside me. I remembered Benjamin at 25, proudly telling me he'd signed a lease on his first apartment. I'd immediately questioned the neighborhood, the landlord, the distance from work. I'd shown up the next day with cleaning supplies and opinions. He'd smiled, but it wasn't happiness. It was resignation. I remembered his wedding, too. How I'd insisted on changes, bigger plans, better photos, a dress I chose instead of the one Stephanie loved. I called it generosity, but really, I had taken something that was meant to be hers. Even Emma, I'd bought better toys, better clothes, better everything. Without realizing it, I taught my granddaughter that Grandma knew best, and Mommy came second. My hands shook as I set the pen down. I finally understood why Stephanie felt invisible. Why Benjamin felt like a child in his own home. Why my presence no longer felt comforting, it felt overwhelming. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself a terrifying question. Who was I, if I wasn't needed? I had built my entire identity around being essential, around fixing problems, around being the one everyone depended on. If I stopped, what would be left? I didn't have time to answer that question, because the very next morning, at exactly 5:47 a.m., someone knocked on my front door. And when I looked through the peephole, my heart nearly stopped. The knock came again, soft, hesitant, almost unsure. My heart pounded as I wrapped my robe tighter and walked down the hallway. When I looked through the peephole, my breath caught. Benjamin. He stood on the porch with his shoulders slumped, eyes shadowed, looking like he hadn't slept in days. My hand froze on the doorknob. A week ago, he couldn't answer my calls. Now he was standing here before sunrise. I opened the door slowly. "Mom," he said, his voice quiet. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside without a word. He walked into the living room and stopped, hands shoved deep into his pockets, staring at the floor like a little boy about to confess something he was afraid to say out loud. I offered him coffee, mostly to give myself something to do. When I returned, he was sitting on the couch, shoulders tense. We sat in silence for a long moment. "I'm sorry about the message," he finally said. "I didn't want to hurt you." "I know," I replied softly, "and I'm respecting it." That made him look up. "You are?" "Yes, I haven't shown up. I haven't called." "That's what you asked for." He swallowed hard. "I didn't expect that." "What did you expect?" I asked gently. He hesitated. "That you'd argue, or explain, or try to fix it." I almost smiled at that. Almost. "I'm trying to learn something new," I said. "Listening." Benjamin rubbed his face, exhausted. "Mom, things haven't been okay." He told me then about the debt they were drowning in. The medical bills, the credit cards, the constant stress. My instinct screamed to fix it, to reach for my checkbook, to make the problem disappear. But I didn't move. Instead, I listened. "We need to handle this ourselves," he said quietly. "Stephanie told me if we don't, she doesn't know how we stay married." The words landed hard. "She feels like we never grew up," he continued. "Like I still have a safety net that keeps me from being a real partner." Tears filled my eyes. "I never wanted that." "I know," he said gently. "That's the problem. You love us so much that you don't see how it affects us." He looked at me, then really looked at me. "Stephanie wants to talk to you. Not today, but soon. If you're willing to listen." I nodded. "I am." As he stood to leave, he paused at the door. "Mom, I don't want to lose you. I just need space to become myself." When the door closed behind him, I stood there shaking, realizing something profound had shifted. Later that afternoon, I received a message from Steve. What she asked for scared me more than any silence ever had. The message from Stephanie arrived just as the sun dipped low in the sky. My hands trembled as I read it. Can we meet tomorrow at the coffee shop? Just the two of us. I want to talk, and I need you to hear me. I took a deep breath. This was it, the conversation I had been dreading and craving all at once. The conversation that could either save my family or make the distance permanent. The next day, I arrived early, nerves twisting in my stomach. Stephanie was already there, sitting at a corner table with her journal open. She looked younger than her 31 years, but her eyes held a weariness I understood. We didn't hug. We just nodded, a fragile acknowledgement of the bridge we were about to rebuild. She started carefully, reading from her neatly written notes. I don't hate you, she said, but Caroline, I need you to respect me as Emma's mother. Your love, it's suffocating. You make us feel incapable, even when we're doing our best. Her words hit harder than any criticism, because they were true. Each example she gave: the birthday party, the bike, the reorganized kitchen. The advice I hadn't been asked for was a mirror showing the harm behind my intentions. I know you love Emma, she continued, and I know you love Benjamin. But love isn't enough when it comes with control. We need space to learn, to make mistakes, to grow. That's what we're asking for. And if that can't happen, then I can't keep our family whole. I swallowed hard. I see it now, I whispered. I've been controlling. I've been trying to help too much, to fix too much, and I see now that in doing so, I took away your trust in your space. I'm sorry. Stephanie closed her journal, a small, hopeful look breaking through her sadness. That's the first step, and we're willing to give you a second chance, but things must change. Boundaries are real this time, Caroline. Ask before you help. Respect when we say no, and see Stephanie as a person, not just Emma's mother. I nodded, tears streaming down my cheeks. I will, I promise. I'll rebuild trust. With action, not words. I want to be part of your lives, but I will respect your space. I understand now. She reached across the table and lightly touched my hand. That's all we've wanted for years. For you to hear us. That evening, I sat alone at home, reflecting on the past weeks. The emails, the therapy sessions, the journals, the hard truths it had all led here. I realized I could love my family without controlling them. I could support them without taking over. And for the first time in decades, I felt a lightness in my chest. Weeks later, we gathered for dinner. No over-preparing, no trying to do everything. Just Ustaga as equals. Benjamin smiled. Stephanie shared her achievements. Emma laughed, showing me the way her mother guided her. And I learned something profound. Love, when paired with respect, is no longer suffocating, it's freeing. The family I almost lost had returned, not perfect, but real, and this time, stronger than ever. If this story touched your heart, tell me in the comments, what city are you watching from? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story so more people remember. No matter how old you are, it's never too late to stand up for yourself.